Why do dental team members sometimes hold back the truth, even when it feels like they can be really engaged and you have a really good rapport with them? Sometimes they still hold back the truth. The reason for this may be something called the power gradient. And the power gradient exists whether we like it or not. Simply put, the power gradient is the relative difference people feel between how important they are versus how important the other person is. In the example of a dental practice, it could be how important a nurse feels they are versus how important they feel the practice principal is or the practice manager is. The more important they feel that person is, the steeper the power gradient. And this can have real implications for leading a dental practice. Amongst many things, it means that a person is unlikely to speak up, to voice their opinions, to give feedback, and to generally give their ideas and perspective onto how to move things forward and how to develop the practice. And this is a real problem in terms of enabling the practice and your practice to develop. It can be really prevalent within dental practices because of the dynamic of the people who are involved. If you think about it, there are lots of reasons why there could be a really steep power gradient in a dental practice. Firstly, the practice principal, for example, will have most likely a higher level of education. And that is something which is knowledge, and that often makes a steeper power gradient. So because of their background, their clinical training, that can often make people feel they're more important. Alongside that, they will now be potentially the boss and the man in charge. Alongside that, they may have also been running the practice for a long time. And these are all things that mean this person may be seen as much more important than the person who it is relative to. So within a dental practice, it's really important to consider quite how steep that power gradient may be. What we need to do is then work out how do we actually flatten that power gradient so people are more likely to speak up. And there's several different ways in which we can do that. You can ask for perspective, ask people regularly for their input and viewpoint, really encourage them to speak up. You can be accessible, be super accessible. And people say, oh, I'm too busy. That may be the case, but find a time. Doesn't mean you have to stop and do everything all the time, but find space to be accessible to your team members. Be prepared to say, I don't know. You don't have to have all the answers. This is something that I find is that most dental practice leaders think they have to have all the answers. You don't. And actually, in fact, you shouldn't. You should ask other people so that they start to come up with the answers. This is about you showing you don't know everything. And this starts to flatten the power gradient. Watch your share of voice. So be careful that you're not holding the floor all the time. It's not always you speaking. Be quiet. Encourage others to speak up, especially in meetings. And aim to relate to them as an equal. Just remember, ultimately, we're all just human beings. And finally, observe rather than judge. So what do you notice rather than judging them as a person? These can all help flatten that power gradient. Ultimately, the power gradient is always at play. And it's being aware that there is a power gradient and then appropriately thinking about your actions to try and flatten that power gradient so that you can have this environment where people will speak up, will give feedback and give perspective. And ultimately, that will enable your practice to thrive.